All right, so I'm really humbled after all of those stories because they were so beautifully delivered and polished, and I just wrote it. And for a while there, I thought, oh, I'll just put it aside and just speak from the heart. And then my ego got in the way of wanting to do that because I want to give you something that was well prepared and for your enjoyment. So if you'll permit me, I'm just going to rely upon the paper. So I teach my students how to write essays, and I tell them that it's all about the title, and then you give them a whiff of that in the introduction, and then you bang it at the end in the conclusion, and it brings it full circle. So that's what I was trying to do with what I wanted to present for you and keep that through line of faith. So I call it the spiritual parachute. Logic has sometimes failed to completely justify certain choices I've made throughout my life. I've been storm chasing just for adventure, and I've run half marathons just because I can, and I have tattoos to testify that I'm sometimes a spontaneous gal. And was I ever 100% sure of my decisions? No. But during it all, I've had a conviction that I was on the right path, that the stage of some part of a great play was being created beyond my knowledge. My personal definition of faith, when rational thought fails to completely explain one's beliefs, have saved me like a parachute, and it keeps skydivers safe from crashing as they free fall. So my most current parachute of faith is literal in that it is a piece of material that sustains me and millions of Muslim women every day. It may be small, at less than 1 yard of silk or cotton, but its redeeming qualities are quite powerful nonetheless. My story starts 5 years ago as a single mom, looking to complete my vision of a happy family for my daughter and me. And destiny prepared me with a man from Turkey in the form of a mutual friend who introduced us to each other. And younger generation, a mutual friend, in the air quotes, you know what that means, because people say, oh, how did you meet? And you'd say, mutual friend introduced us, which is usually the internet, right? So God works in mysterious ways, right? So it all works out. So he'd been working in Istanbul as a marketing executive, and he came to the United States to better his English. So he realized that anybody who could speak English would always get a better salary there. So the plan was to come here for 6 months, work on his conversational English, put that on his CV, go back to Istanbul. We'd spoken on a few times, and we finally decided to meet in person. Now, our mutual friend I had gotten to know because I wanted to find someone for a long-term relationship, and I wanted a husband. I wanted a father for my daughter, and he wanted to speak English, so the fact that I was an English teacher and I was open enough to know somebody's culture, and as he was getting to know me, I was getting to know him, and he realized, she's very genuine. This is not just someone who's messing around on the internet, and he was learning his English, and I was getting to know him. We got to know one another, and then things progressed. But when we first met, he did caution me. He said, traditionally, Turks don't date. And I didn't quite know what that meant, but we kept enjoying getting to know one another, our interests, our childhood goals for the future, and we were compatible, and I loved learning about him. And in some ways, he seemed very, very different on the surface, but deep down, it was very, very similar. Our connections had gone beyond cultural barriers. I remember at one point asking him where he saw us going. And he said his life was very uncertain, and if I needed a security of the promise of something definite, then maybe it would be best if we parted. Years later, when I remind him of this moment, he confessed that that was really a test that he had said to me to see what I was going to do. So I said to him that we would continue, and the one thing was that I had faith again, that I was doing what was meant to be done in my life at that time. Well, after a year and a half of not dating, He told his family about our situation and that we should consult his spiritual advisor, as they do in all important decisions. And this very wise and special man in Istanbul, he's an imam, a priest who knows the book very much. And he said that it would be beneficial for my then not boyfriend and me if we would marry. So in his wisdom, we decided that that's what was going to happen. So what he did was he told his family, told the imam, he said that, and I remember, I'm going off book here, but I remember that we were in the place where he was working at the time, and he sat me down and he said, remember you had asked me a while back where this is all going? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, I had a conversation with our imam, and I Skyped with mommy and daddy, and they all said that maybe it would be a good thing if we went to Turkey this summer and got married. So how about it? Okay. And then it was about a half an hour later, I think we were at the grocery store, and I said, wait a minute, did you just propose to me? He's like, yeah, if that's what it is, okay, fine. We're gonna do it, right? I said, okay. So that was our proposal. So I went back to work, and colleagues at work asked me the typical questions that are all too familiar to a wife of a foreign-born Muslim. Are they forcing you to convert? Are you sure he's not in it for the... Yeah, right. How do your parents feel? And my favorite, have you seen the movies Midnight Express or not? Do you know it? Yes, right. So that was the other thing, not without my daughter. I suppose all these questions could have angered me, but I chose to have faith in my judgment that, after all, I had managed to survive this long in the world, and everything went at a lightning speed. So on April 4th, on 2011, I was officially the wife of an alien, and my secular parachute in the form of a veil billowing on the windy steps of the courthouse. At that time, I had not yet converted. Only after going to Turkey to meet his family over the summer, we had our nikah, or Islamic ceremony, and we met, or what did I say? Oh, I'm so sorry. We met at what seemed to be about half the population of Turkey, because he has 13 aunts and uncles on his father's side, that he must have had like about 80 cousins. So we met all of these people, and I then fully understood what it was that I had been welcomed into. I was now a part of his family and his religion. And I'll never forget driving directly from the airport to a cousin's house to get ready for our Islamic wedding. I had to take a shower in a certain way to make sure I was properly clean. His mother had bought me a new outfit for me to put on. At first I was wondering if it was because my things were not suitable. Now I understand that it was only that they are so kind and giving. When we got to the imam's house, I was very scared, not because of anything he did, but because I had this intense fear that he would find fault with me in some way, that maybe I wasn't good enough, maybe my past made me dishonorable, I was flawed in some way, which would nullify our marriage. Instead, we negotiated the dowry, which is a traditional thing to do, and I took Shahada and the prayer of conversion. I knelt until I thought my calves would fall off. The circulation was draining from my feet. And my father-in-law whispered my new name in my ears, and then I was officially a part of their family and his daughter. In my 9 weeks there over that summer, I learned as much as I could about his family and the true Islam. Much of my experiences were through the women. Whenever I'd be introduced, my mother-in-law would explain to them that I had just married her son and I had converted to Islam. What invariably would follow was an enthusiastic "Mashallah, Janam," which loosely means "God bless you, my sweet, lovely child," in a mixture of Arabic and Turkish. And I'd get a giant bear hug from women who were about half my height but double my weight, so I was completely enveloped. They were also happy because they consider it a huge blessing when someone not born into that faith comes to Islam, because it's a choice rather than a given that they were born into. They were also thrilled because I would be able to learn about the religion and take back to the States my understandings of the true Islam to educate others and spread the love of God, and hopefully dispel some of the misunderstandings of what it means to be Muslim. It is worth mentioning that my husband's mother actually owns and runs a prayer house and does a lot of work in the Muslim community back in Istanbul. I consider myself very lucky to have this connection, for if I ever have questions about the faith or my life or how the two combine, I have many resources that are just a Skype away. And she and the women she prays with, they hosted a Kina night in my honor the night before we got married. I was dressed in my wedding dress, and girls from the Islamic school sang songs with flutes and drums. I was sitting on a stool like this, and beautiful girls sitting around in a semicircle singing songs of praise. I was so humbled and amazed that they went to all this trouble just for me. But really, they were celebrating one more woman embracing the faith. My sister-in-law was holding my hand through it all, and at the end of the night, I felt born again. All the women in his family at the prayer house wear scarves. It's not compulsory to do anything in the Islamic religion, though it is something that is good to do. If I'm totally honest, I don't ever think I considered not covering. I wanted to please them so much. But by the end of our time together, I had experienced such love and genuine kindness from them that I wanted to become part of it and chose to cover from my heart and not for someone else. All my life, I wanted a happy, close, and loving, supported family. And that's what I married into. God is at the center of their lives. And being Turkish, they happen to be Muslim. We visited the wise man again, and he reminded me that although it was my decision whether or not to wear the scarf, he cautioned me that it was not one to make lightly, because it comes with a great responsibility. In that moment, I chose to become a type of ambassador to the faith that I had converted. I felt it essential to be identified outwardly by my appearance that I am Muslim. Otherwise, I would not be able to dispel any myths about the religion. There are so many misconceptions about Islam, and I felt passionately that if people who knew me before and then after my conversion saw that my lifestyle did not change that much, then maybe they'd start to open up to learning more and trying to understand. And that's happened. My scarves create conversations of where I'm from. People aren't expecting me to say, Allentown. They help me to make friends, and just maybe they challenge those who have prejudice when they see my life. Yes, I drive, and I go to the gym, and I run 10Ks. I love to dance, and I love to act goofy. Muslim is not synonymous with serious. In fact, Islam is joyful, and I've experienced more joy and freedom from anxiety that I've had in my life in the past since converting and being blessed in my marriage and with a loving family. One thing I've come to expect is the offhanded question or statement from well-meaning or maybe not so well-meaning people. It's as if I've got the phrase, I'm a Muslim, ask or assume anything. It's like it's woven into my scarves. And people who never spoke to me before now ask different questions like, so what do Muslims actually believe? Where did you get all your scarves? Is that called a hijab or is it a burqa? What's the difference? Am I an Islamic expert? No more than the average Christian is an expert in the Bible, but I'm learning. So let me address some of the most frequent misconceptions and questions I've discovered over the past 3 years as a Muslim. What I wear on my head is called a scarf. Keeping hijab means dressing modestly, and it can come in many forms. It's dictated by culture as well, and how one integrates it into one's life becomes between that person and God. Burqas are the entire head-to-toe garment. I wear my scarf only around men and who are not my husband. So that's one thing. I don't shower in it. People ask, do I sleep in it? If I fall asleep in it, then I wear it in my sleep. But it's comfortable. Sometimes I take it off, sometimes I don't. I can breathe in it. People think because I cover here that my air passage, I can breathe with it. It doesn't choke me. All right. No, my husband does not have other wives back in his home country. I get that. What did I think of the Sally Field movie? I liked her better in Steel Magnolias and Forrest Gump. Thanks. True, I don't eat pork and I don't drink alcohol anymore. I figure that from my past life to now, the not drinking alcohol, it'll probably even out from the time that I die. Other than those two restrictions, all the other laws you see in the media that women are more allowed to do this or not do this, that's more for a political reason in certain countries, and that's not dictated in the Quran. My husband does not boss me around. In fact, I'll admit that I tend to be the more domineering one. My husband is the kindest and most supportive man I've had the blessing to know. I mean, look at me. I'm here all by myself. He didn't come. I was allowed to go by myself, except for my very dear friend who came tonight. Thank you. It's true that I met my husband first and then decided to convert, but it was a natural progression of falling in love, wanting a united family, and deciding that it was the right decision for me. It's not been easy, but I've never regretted, and I'm very thankful. And now just, if you'll indulge me, a few conceptions about Islam itself, the faith. I was afraid to put that into this, but when I submitted my story, I got the feedback from Jim that it's something people might want to know. So I humbly submit some of my impressions about the faith that I've come to understand, and if I mislead, then please forgive me. Allah is the Arabic word for God. That's all. Allah is not a different God from the Jewish God or the Christian God. I can't tell you how many times people have said to me, it doesn't matter if you pray to God or Allah or whatever you call, as if they were two entities. They're not. Muslims do not worship the Prophet Muhammad. We only worship God. That's why you'll not find a picture of the Prophet Muhammad anywhere. It's to prevent the idolatry of his image. Allahu Akbar means God is greatest, and it's heard at the call of prayer. It's not a terrorist battle cry, and any true Muslim would never endorse killing another human being, just as any Christian would not condemn people who use the words of the Bible to spread hate. The Quran is in line with the Old and New Testament, and we believe it's the final testament before the end of the world. It has Abraham, Moses, Noah, and get ready for this, Jesus. In fact, I've recently reread the 4 Gospels, and everything that Jesus said in them is in line with Islam. Even the Lord's Prayer is in line with Islam, provided that the Lord is God alone. For Muslims believe that while God sent Jesus to speak the word of God, he was ascended into heaven and will come back as the Messiah, and that Jesus himself never claimed that he was God. Muslim means a person who is submissive to God's will. Thus, all Jews and Christians, by definition, are Muslim. 3 summers ago, I went to Turkey looking as an ordinary American, and 9 weeks later, I returned a hijabi, and it was the best decision for me. The whole point to my story is that sometimes it's not the faith in religion that sustains, but the faith it takes just to claim your own religion. True, I did convert in order to marry my husband originally, but people tend to forget that marriage itself is a declaration of faith. To decide that this person is the one I am meant to be with for the rest of my life, and I'm reminded of that faith every time I grab one of my scarves. The faith I have in the potential of that 1 yard of fabric to change my life continues to be my parachute in this spiritual free fall. I have faith that I made the right choice in becoming Muslim, faith that I married the right man, and the faith that all these decisions are a part of a greater plan that is bigger than me and beyond all rational explanation. Thank you.